Sure thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here with Brian, a viewer, and we're going to be discussing objectivism with the current objectivist scene, what we think is the current situation and where it's going. Is that fair what we're doing here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hello, Brandon.
How you doing, Brian?
Yeah.
Now, how long have you been into objectivism? Tell us a bit about yourself as a viewer.
It all started, I think I read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged probably 6 years ago. I was just getting out of the military. I used to be in the military as a Navy electronic technician. And I read that book. I didn't really get anything out of it, except I got the morality, or Ayn Rand's ideal of what a morality might look like. I don't think I thought about philosophy until maybe like 3 or 4 years later. I read The Fountainhead, and then that was just a rabbit hole where I started reading all of her other work. I started reading her nonfiction and her fiction a lot with Mr. Peikoff, yourself, and others. So now I consider myself an objectivist, but I mean, it takes a while. Peikoff said that you can change your context. You can change like a coherent a mindset, but it takes time. It takes sometimes months. It takes years. He said, you know, he would expect it would take about a full year for someone to completely submerge themselves or immerse themselves in objectivism and understand it completely. So I think I'm almost there, but I can't be sure of myself until I test myself, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to know where you stand, but it's nice to be able to go out on the internet and just check with everybody else to see what's going on, and then you get some appraisal of where your understanding level is when you go out in public. All right.
Right.
So what's the first bit of ground you want to cover here? You mentioned what ARI is doing. Are they being effective? What could they be doing? What should they be doing? Should we open up parallel projects and let them do as they please, or should we try to nudge them off the path that they're on?
I think that they're leaving a lot of gaps. There's a lot of room that we can fill that they're neglecting, I would say. I know that Yaron stepped down as chairman of the ARI, and since then another gentleman has filled his shoes. But from the video that I saw, he wants to aim at equipping the next generation of philosophers to tackle the future problems of objectivism, of spreading it. But they want to curate very specific people and put them out into the world to talk more about objectivism on a bigger scale. Unfortunately, I see that they're leaving a lot on the table when it comes to addressing current objectivists and also non-intellectuals in general. They're aiming for cream of the crop, top 1%. But I think the way that Yaron did it, I think Yaron's still going to be around. He still seems to be doing his podcasts, and he's talking to the masses about economics and, I guess, foreign policy, a little bit of domestic policy. I'm sure this 2020 election cycle, he'll be talking a lot about that. But he's not reaching everybody. I think he's also kind of stuck in a rut where he's only speaking with people who already get it. He's speaking to the choir. So the more people that are included in the conversation, even if they don't quite understand it all, I think the better, because it creates momentum. And it's a good feedback mechanism to show where objectivism is not meeting the needs of people who are just getting into it. We get a lot of people who don't quite understand it. They can tell us what we're doing wrong and how to push forward in the right direction.
Boy, now you can hear the criticism there of, I mean, have people tell us what we're doing wrong, what the objectivists are doing wrong. Now, one of the things which Onar suggested is that Ayn Rand was sort of rude to people and didn't give a damn, and either they accepted her ideas or didn't, and that didn't do a lot of good for her. And so I said, to him, okay, Ayn Rand would have been more effective by this point in time today if she would have been a nicer person? Really? Is that true? I mean, being nice to these people would have made her ideas more appealing?
Oh yeah, she didn't bend 1 inch to anyone, and I think that as a firebrand, she needed to do what she did. She was rigid and unforgiving to anybody that would speak to her in any which way and assume her ideas for her or try and use her banner to spread objectivism that was not directly Ayn Rand's objectivism. So she was, I think, usually on the defense, but mostly on the attack.
So what parallels do you see with that and the ARI? Should they continue to just basically go for the throat, don't care, or should they be more? What do you see? What's the parallel there? Should they take the Ayn Rand, be rude to everybody, and then everybody hates her by the end of her life? Nobody would talk to her.
I think that we could be a little bit less rigid, or not specifically Yaron or ARI, but the people who are desiring to become objectivists, we can, I know this is going to sound also very controversial, but we can atomize the philosophy so that people can take bits and parts of it without having to consume the whole bit. So when it comes to objectivism, we can talk about selfishness as a virtue and talk about that in videos specifically without addressing all the rest or without having to tell them to go read a book or a novel in order to understand it further. And we can drop little breadcrumbs along the way that lead in the same direction of where we're going and where we want other people to go as well. So
now, if we talk about selfishness as a virtue, they're going to say, oh, I know selfishness isn't a virtue. And then you're going to have to say, well, rationality is really, if you behave rationally, then you'll be led to selfishness. And then you're immediately going to be backing up rationality. So you're going to be, you can't just mention bits and pieces of the philosophy. It comes and stands as a whole or falls as a whole, which is, I mean, it's an integrated whole. It's like this window in the house can't be taken out and just walk around with this window. The window is where it is in the house, and it gives you a nice view from the living room when you're having breakfast because it's there in that spot in the house. You take that window out with the crowbar and walk down the street with it, and it's not the nice window in your house anymore. Now it's a weird thing you're walking. You can't just take selfishness out and walk around with it, or capitalism. You can't just take, which is what, who's the Jew? Ben Shapiro. He wants to just take capitalism and defend that. Forget the selfishness part. That sounds all rude and stuff. We'll just defend freedom. It's not selfish to be free.
I would say that it's the most selfish thing that a person can do.
Well, if you're going to defend,
is important, and then fight for that for themselves.
Well, then if you're going to defend freedom, you're going to defend selfishness. Now, if you're going to defend selfishness, everybody knows that's bad. Well, why do I defend that? Well, because you have to be rational in order to live, and if you're rational, then you take care of yourself. Well, okay, so I'm defending rationality now. To defend freedom, I've got to defend rationality. All in the same day. This isn't even on 2 different days. This is in the same day. If I mention freedom, I'm stuck going to epistemology and rationality. So that is the curse of objectivism, is that it's such an integrated philosophy. We want the world to know all of it. We believe all of it's important. No part of it's not important. Anytime somebody gets to a certain point, we say, well, but you haven't understood measurement omission yet and concept formation. You need to understand concept formation. So we want the whole philosophy to be imparted, right? What do you think of what I've said?
The way that I look at it is there's social interactions that we have, the way that people view us, not as objectivists, but as people. People take what they find interesting from others. So they'll take little bits at a time. I have a situation where I was talking with a classmate. I'm in school right now doing IT. But I was talking with a classmate, and I started mentioning virtues and why people should live virtuously. And he actually started making fun of me because he's never really heard about anyone talking about virtues before. So I just explained a little bit about how man is a conceptual being and that we have to use our mind in order to attain what we want out of life. And how do we use our mind? Well, we have to follow virtues. We have to find what will lead us on the good path to happiness and productivity.
So for him, virtue would probably mean something like Gandhi or Mother Teresa. Virtue would mean living in a cave, giving away all your money to poverty.
Yeah, no idea. Yeah, but I mean, just talking about that one thing led him on the path. And I'm sure if I speak with him in the next 3 months, he might be a little closer to where objectivism is than he was before. He's actually heading in the same direction now. Because now he didn't even think about that. He thought, hey, every day I wake up in the morning, I figure out what I have to do, and then I figure out what I want to do. And, if I had more pleasure than pain, it's been a good day. But that's, the rat race that we all live in. He wasn't living with direction. So I think that could be one part of objectivism that is easy to talk about with people without having to give them the entire philosophy. And it is a coherent philosophy. Every bit has to go with every other bit. But their attention spans just aren't long enough in today's world. I think maybe
now,
going
wait
on
a
small...
People have really, really long attention spans. They do. They have much, much longer. People are listening to Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson.
Those are the philosophers that ARI is going after. Those are the people already interested in finding out the why.
And Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan does not do 5-second films.
That guy, yeah.
Now, if everybody had a short attention span, then 5-second films would be the big thing, right?
We do have TikTok. It is a thing.
Yeah, but TikTok's not as big as Jordan Peterson or Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson put together.
It reaches a different crowd. So I think that you're right. There's a lot of people with an appetite to hear a 3-hour discussion on metaphysics and whether our morality comes from our whims, our intuition. Sure, with Sam Harris, he gets a large following. I believe he's probably more or just as popular as Jordan Peterson. Peterson has a different approach. He tells stories. Everyone is already predisposed or primed to listen to stories. So he has that advantage. Maybe that is part of the solution. So as far as Jordan Peterson goes, I've been a fan. I've been listening to him for a long time. I think that he does have the goods when it comes to spreading ideas. ARI included him as part of their OCON event in 2018, I believe. Probably not a good idea at the time because Peterson is kind of off on his own world, talking about, I guess, archetypes and the mother, the father, and a good son. But he wasn't talking about deeper meaning. And I think that's something that we can use to our advantage. Since he didn't talk about it, we can appropriate his tools and maybe bring in some meaning to people's lives.
Well, he's saying that we're missing the deeper meaning because we've given up our old traditions, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a fair way to summarize his position? What do you think of what he's saying? Nobody knows what he's saying. We all listen to him all the time because we think someday he'll say what he's saying, but he's just going on and on, damn it.
That's his, I think that's his greatest strength and is also his greatest weakness. Everyone's listening in for the punchline. And it's not that he doesn't provide a punchline. He provides several. You can take him 10 different ways. 10 different people can listen to him and take away 10 different messages. I think his strongest point that he comes across with is that ideas are universal, that that ideas don't evolve, but there are archetypes that all of us understand conceptually. So the mother, the father, the son, the good man, the good wife, or the good woman. But
you say ideas don't evolve.
The way that he speaks about them some ideas are timeless, and he always goes back to Jesus Christ and the church.
Now, that's kind of like saying electricity doesn't evolve. Our understanding of it might, but electricity itself, like lightning bolts and static electricity and the nature of magnets and copper wire, that didn't evolve, but our understanding of it has evolved.
Right.
So I kind of like that. I kind of like that line of thought there. That's interesting.
But what I wanted to talk about, I wanted to see if we can combine the two. Jordan Peterson has a large following for his stories, his narratives, and his archetypes. Maps and meaning was also a big benefit to him. I think that there are a lot of people that are following Jonathan Haidt's right now and his 6 moral foundations. I think they're coming up with a 7th moral foundation right now. I think that these are all different parts of philosophy that are scattered. And I think that they could be unified through story. So I wanted to talk about maybe stories that we might have seen as kids that exemplify certain virtues and that maybe people have already seen, people have already internalized, and that they're primed to understand where you might be coming from when you talk about movies such as The Little Mermaid, exemplifying a virtuous woman, or the story of Mulan, exemplifying what it means to be a man. Right now, I think in our Western culture, we're very confused about what virtues are. The postmodernists have come across and said, well, virtue is whatever you choose. So in a vacuum, you can choose to be the best furry and put on, furry ears and a tail and walk around barking at people, and there you're living virtuously. But I think that there's conceptual virtues that we already understand in the back of our minds and that we just need to bring out of people.
The furry community fell apart because they found out some of them were on the left and some were on the right, and they couldn't agree about stuff.
That's funny.
Did you not hear about that?
I think I've heard you speak about it, but that's I actually dated a furry once. Just saying, they're individuals. They're unique individuals. Very, very unique. But yeah, they still have the same divisions that I think normal people do.
Yeah. Do they think they can just check out a reality by putting on a furry suit? Is that sort of what they're trying to do?
It's more like this is a criticism against furries. I don't think that they have a lot of self-worth as the people that they are. So they invent, a fantasy of, hey, today I'm going to be, and it doesn't always change, but today I'm going to be a wolf, or today I'm going to be a troll or a fox. And so they understand the stereotype of what makes a fox, or what makes a duck. And so they can live their lives personifying that virtue easier than living as a human. For them, they have more difficulty going that way.
Weird.
So I think that they're a little bit confused, like a child who grows up without a mother and a father. Maybe they won't understand implicitly what the role of a mother and a father are. So these people, they were born without, or they weren't born, but they never really learned what it means to be a virtuous human. So they take on these other identities. I think that's a struggle that 2019 through probably 2030 that we're going to be having as the West. We're struggling with identity. We're going to have a lot more furries and a lot more trans and non-binary, and oh my God. But I don't think anyone is making the affirmative case, except for Jordan Peterson, who came out and said, to be a man, you need to, he always talks about ordering chaos. And to be a woman, it's nurturing. It's providing nurture. They own the domain of life. So life through death, child rearing, every source of good and nutrient comes from the feminine, and order and civility and civilization comes from men. I think that he is playing with these ideals of what it means to be an ideal person. So I think that we can work on that a little bit more.
Yeah, when you said what stories have you seen in your childhood or whatever, I was thinking there's not very many stories that I saw. I saw strong man conquers enemy or defends, and woman provides nourishment or protection or comfort. And virtually every story is going to fit those two narratives. Virtually everyone.
I think recently we've been seeing a lot of Disney stories that exemplify a rebellious woman who, speaks her mind, always has an opinion, and challenges the status quo. But I think that that's a modern invention that we are kind of taking into our conception of what a woman is. Earlier I mentioned The Little Mermaid. I think it what a virtuous woman would be, and her struggles to deal with self-identifying as a human, which Little Mermaid Ariel wanted to do. Finding a man who is high status, who can take care of her, finding her role in society. Unfortunately, she had to do it without a voice. So a lot of people say The Little Mermaid, hey, that's a sexist story. But
she had to give up her. She had to give up her voice to climb the ladder of success.
Well, it's an archetypal type of story. She gained her voice, and Prince Eric, who was her chosen mate, he actually embraced her for having a voice and thoughts, and she was intelligent. So that only made him love her more. But she was overcoming the stereotype that she had to be quiet and seductive and mysterious. So I think all of that kind of personifies what a good woman is. It's all of the above. So it's not only being, friendly, possibly good-looking, but attractive, or having attractive qualities. It also, it's providing that compassion, that warmth, and also the feminine perspective.
We created a myth about the feminine mystique. We created it's got a mythos around it, what females are. We went on and on about them, about how gentle they are and how nurturing they are. We went on and on like this. And then we said, well, what harm can they do then? So then we started taking away various laws and putting other laws in place, saying, well, a woman would never do any harm, so let's put this law in place. And a woman would never do anything wrong over here, so let's put this law in place. And now we're backed into quite a corner in that way because of the myth of women.
But people overlook the toxic femininity. I'll use the word toxic here. I want to define it as an arrogant person. So someone who pushes their view of society onto others. Typical examples of this would be the wicked stepmother of Cinderella or Snow White, where they're witches that are trying to take the youth and hold their status from others. So that would be an arrogant or a toxic femininity. That's something that people need to watch out for in themselves. When Jordan Peterson says there's always a snake in the garden, is what he really means is there's a little bit of a duality. It's not that people are good or bad, but they must strive to do good. And if you leave a person in a position of, say, ultimate power, or in a position where other people depend on them, they could develop arrogance and start pushing their worldview onto others. So we have healthy and toxic femininity. It doesn't come up very much anymore, though. You never see. I think this is a big problem with, say, for instance, the new Star Wars trilogy that we're being, we're being forced to watch. Whether we want to or not, it's going to be talked about in culture. But they don't address toxic femininity whatsoever in those films. All women are innocent, powerful, smart, and they're always right. Even if they're wrong, they're really right. So they're trying to portray them as angelic, and I think that we need to take a more realistic view on what a virtuous woman is, what a woman is, and then what a virtuous woman is, instead of just portraying only one side of the equation.
Yeah, these films are going to be very dated in 10 or 20 years. people are going to just roll their eyes. We already do. But, like some of the heavily racist stuff that was done in the 1920s or whatever that we still have on film. And we go, wow, can't believe they did that. Holy crap. And they didn't think twice about it. It was just whatever. It was what they were doing in the theaters anyway. Now they just had a camera there. So we are leaving record of our behavior, I'll tell you what. All right.
What it will take before we realize, before we have a paradigm shift, and then we can see the contrast. I think it might take a movement of people to stand up and say that they don't want to buy what Hollywood has been feeding us, and that we want to live. I mean, I think it's going to take women to stand up, a true feminism, feminist cause, maybe a sixth wave, to say, hey, we can work and we can raise children. We can, love our husbands, and we can also go on adventures too. I mean, women are more of a complete package than I think people are being led to believe.
Well, I think it'll take the form of men and women deciding together to raise their children more like we used to raise females as females and males as males, and teaching females a little bit of modesty. Look, females have the power. They have the goods. And they need to be told that from a young age, that you're going to have a lot of boys going to want to kiss you, and you can't go around kissing all those boys that want to kiss you, right? Now, you don't need to sit down and warn little boys, look, there's a lot of pretty girls out there, He's going to find that out on his own. Like, that's just his world. But you do kind of need to tell the girl, look, lots of boys are going to give you their attention. A new one every day. So you can't be, you've got to be shy and guard the goods, because you're going to have too many takers. Now, you don't tell a boy that. You tell a boy, did the girl smile at you? Well, get over there. Go say hi to her. Right? These are different messages. And if we're giving kids the same message, that's not fair. It's not fair to the girls who are now giving up the goods too easily or whatever, and can't get hitched because they find themselves at 29 years old after 2 abortions. Nobody wants to marry them and settle down now. And the boys, we are not telling them, be brave and go get the girl. We're telling them to be nice and quit yelling and sit down and be quiet. And so they're all sitting in the basement playing video games instead of going out to get a girl or a job. So I think it's going to return to a rational view of what females are. And we're going to have to teach kids to be females if they're females, and to be males if they're males. And that's the only way to fix the culture, I think.
Well, I think that there's a lot of examples on what a good male or a good man, what they should follow. I don't think the kids need to be told. I think they open their eyes and they see. But they need to be given examples. So, the reason why people say that people who are born in a household with a mother and father are privileged over everyone else who is not, whether it's skin color, race, religion, any which way. If you're born in a household with 2 parents, you're more likely to succeed because they have role models, they have examples. The reason why I talk about Disney movies is because if, aside from everyone wanting 2 parents, not everyone can be born into that situation. It's not within their control. But Disney is mainstream and pervasive. It's something that our culture, it doesn't want to escape, but it cannot escape even if it wanted to. So I take movies like Mulan, for instance, on what it takes to be a man. Hercules, of course, someone who's strong and has conviction. He doesn't actually get his conviction until the end of the movie, and that's when he actually attains his true strength. But people need someone or something to look up to emulate. I think that that's how humans, how we do have our perceptions, our sight, smell, taste, touch, and feel. Um, but we also we perceive archetypes. It's like, who is this person and what are they to me? And that might take the role of a father, or it might be Bill Cosby on the Cosby Show, and you can't really use that anymore. But who is his counterpoint, or who fills in those shoes today? I don't even know.
We had one good black comedian who had wholesome family values.
He was the best,
and he turned out to be a serial rapist.
I don't defend the guy, but what I say to people is, hey, back in the 70s and 80s, we had a party attitude. People took drugs, smoked weed. There wasn't any hesitation when it came to that. If somebody came over to your house and you offered them sleeping pills, most likely they would just say yes. Yeah, sure, give me some party drugs. I want some uppers. No, I want some downers. So I think that he got caught in a bad situation because he just offered, and you'll hear from many of these women that testified, yeah, they willingly took it. They said, yes, I'll take 2, please. But some of the people that he interacted with, he gave them the benefit of the doubt, and he didn't even ask. And that's not right,
Yeah.
He's like, oh, okay, well, she looks like she needs to calm down a little bit. Let's put some extra in her tea. Here you go.
Yeah.
It's good for you.
So so if we lose Cosby, who else can we? Who's the backup?
I don't even know. Jordan Peterson is filling the role a little bit. I don't even watch TV. Everything I see on TV is all CSI crime mysteries, or futuristic crime mysteries, or medieval crime mysteries. I don't even know where to start.
No, I think the wholesome sitcoms of the 80s are gone. I think the 70s and Letting Go and Everybody Party, in the 80s it hit a wall with AIDS. And everybody went, whoa, we've gone too far here. And we had to go back to not having sex before marriage, and that all the clampdown started somewhere in 82 or 4 or something like that, and by the end of the Reagan era, we were fully in the good sitcom mode. Every sitcom and every kids show had a moral at the end of it. Remember that? At the end of G.I. Joe, it says the moral of the story is, be prepared or whatever.
I reminisce on old television shows more than I should. I think that's what identifies a boomer nowadays. People who talk about shows that, like I Love Lucy, that, this new generation, they're like, who the heck is Lucy? But no, I don't think there's very much to replace it in the ways of television nowadays. We have online personalities that might be filling in the shoes. But so I think that more than just like a TV show that can save us, we need, for an ideal man and an ideal woman, I think that we need to find a show or identify mediums that personify objectivism. I was trying to think about this on my own. There's not that many examples. There's a lot of shows out there that raise science and objectivity on a podium, right? They give it a high prominence in the show, but they don't talk about reason. They don't talk about philosophy. They just say, hey, the world exists, and this is how we know, and this is how we can take advantage of it to solve a murder mystery. But I think that I'm looking for something that brings together, metaphysics, epistemology, and what it means to be a virtuous person.
Well, now, how many people need to understand or even know about philosophy in order to practice a good philosophy?
They just need a good example to live up to, and they'll be living the good life with or without knowing it. But so the way that I look at things, people have coherent mindsets. Everyone wants things that make sense to occupy their minds. Anything that's a contradiction, instinctually, they reject. So if I tell you that Bernie Sanders is coming out as a capitalist tomorrow, you would be like, no way. I've heard way too many things that he said. There's no way that anything that you're saying could be true. People reject contradictions. But when they're growing up with a role model like the Cosbys or the Winslows for Family Matters, it's easier to accept good ideas. A counterexample would be the MTV generation, watching shows like 16 and Pregnant or Beavis and Butthead. You get a lot of ideas that are damaging or bad, but what happens is it primes you to accept even worse ideas down the line. It primes you to reject things like family values and objectivity. That, the world exists. There's a lot of people right now that are wandering around wondering if it's all just in their mind.
Yeah, well, our culture has a very cynical attitude. Nothing serious. We laugh and sneer at everything. And if that's all you ever hear from your culture, then it's very hard to take anything at all seriously. So it occurs to me that you're saying that we need to get the culture to take certain things more seriously. But we're at a point right now where the culture doesn't take anything seriously. So we need to get back to a point where people will even turn their mind on and think at all. You're saying we need to think more about philosophy or whatever and blah, blah, blah. We're at such a nihilist state right now. We've got to get back to the point where people are willing to not just laugh and sneer at stuff. And
I think maybe we had more of a nihilist culture in the 90s and early 2000s. After 9/11 and the towers fell, everyone got a lot more serious. Right now, I think that there's a very vocal and well-paid minority of nihilists, the people that are constructing art, not yourself, of course, but the people that are running the galleries, the people that are making the movies. They inherently, not inherently, but they search out and destroy values. They say, hey, if you have religiosity, let me make a whole movie making fun of that. If you believe in family, let me give you a gay couple and show you how it can be done better. They're always tearing down, I think what you would call tradition, but I would call just family values. So they're the people, I don't think that they're in power, but they have more power than they used to have. So now we're seeing it more.
Evidence that the culture doesn't completely buy it is Jordan Peterson, for example. Like the culture's hungry for the answer to that, the antidote to that. People don't like it. People want to go the other way. So I would say, to the extent that you want objectivism to spread, Jordan Peterson's evidence that the culture's ready to think more seriously about things, or some people in the culture are. Of course, there's this large contingent of people that are on TikTok watching 12-second long videos, right? But
cat videos will always own the internet. But I think there's a famous quote that Jordan Peterson said. He said, look, I didn't start this movement. I just provided the spark, but you can't blame the forest fire on the lighted match. There had to be kindling. There had to be the right environment for this forest to catch fire. Him being the voice of reason in an age of a lack of role models, I would say, he was in the right place at the right time saying the right thing. But he attributes it more as there's a need in society. And he's filling it in partially, but I think that there's a greater need, a void that can be filled by many other voices. And you're one of the voices online that's being a voice of reason. I think there could be many more in the future. I think the philosophy of objectivism is just getting started. I know 50 years is a little late, but I think we have a lot of room to grow.
Yeah. Now, I think it'll take, like I said, philosophy is not going to be everybody's concern. But like the Tea Party that's obsessed with Atlas Shrugged and economics, they're certainly not going to be Marxists just because they don't understand the whole integrated philosophy from top to bottom doesn't mean that they're going to go off and get the wrong idea. They can have correct ideas without having the whole of the idea. That's the real challenge, though, is that if they don't really understand why they hold the ideas, then they can be tempted away to other ideas easily, or more easily than if they understood the roots. So there were people who were atheist, and now Jordan Peterson comes along and they go, oh, well, shit, maybe I better go to church. Because they weren't really convinced philosophically. They were just, they had watched Carl Sagan and these comedians, Ricky Gervais or whoever, and they laugh at religion. And then Jordan Peterson says, no, religion's serious. I say, all right, I'll go back to church then. So that's the danger. This whole a large part of society is probably always going to be in that wishy-washy middle ground, aren't they? Because
yeah, they are.
We're not going to be able to convince them philosophically of the case, but we will be able to get them to practice it culturally if their parents and teachers give it to them from the time they're young.
Yeah, I think that people can lead by example, and people can take the examples living the life. The goal of objectivism, you can't be an objectivist if you don't use reason. But there's a lot of people that get sucked into the matrix mindset where maybe the world isn't real. My perceptions are all lying to me. Maybe there's a purpose in life, and my purpose is to restore batteries for machines on a far-off world. And they go with that mindset, and they get stuck in that mindset. And once they get stuck, it's harder to penetrate their mindset with good ideas. I think that role models provide fertile ground for better ideas to grow.
All right. So objectivists need to. You said you want the objectivists to be objectivism to be exemplified in art.
In art. Media, somewhere that's mainstream, out in the open. I think that ideas already, all ideas. We have a marketplace of ideas in America. We have pluralism where everyone has an answer for every problem that they can conceive, and every other person has a different answer. They're all creating solutions through artwork, through mediums, production. So there should be examples already in the culture, something that we can all point to and say, hey, look, this exemplifies objectivism. What comes to mind is BioShock, a video game created from Ayn Rand's universe of The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, where the game was featured. It surrounded the notion that humanity has a purpose for living, and the purpose for living is man is an end to himself. So everyone in the video game, the culture in that video game, they all strived to be the best. And the richest and smartest people built their own subterranean underwater civilization where it was like Bald's Gulch or the city of Atlantis in Atlas Shrugged, where they went to go be free. But they took things a little bit too far and started experimenting on human genetics, and it went a little wrong. But there are examples out there where they explicitly say, the directors, like, yeah, I read Atlas Shrugged, and I wanted to make it real, so here it is. And I'm sure people would recognize that if they were pointed in that direction. Say, hey, look, doesn't this look right? Is there a part of this that makes sense to you? These people, they recognize reality as it was. They recognize reason. They recognize that in order to live a good life, they had to be productive and have purpose. Well, that's why they escaped the world to live in this subterranean underwater city and live their best lives.
What's his name? Interviewed Levine. Ken Levine, I think it was his name. What's his name? The objectivist. The crazy objectivist. Who's the crazy objectivist? Interviewed Ken Levine. Who's the crazy objectivist? What's his name?
The crazy one. We're all a little crazy.
Mr. Two, Charles Two, interviewed Ken Levine. Did you know that?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
A pretty long interview. I recommend anyone who hasn't watched it to watch it. You should go watch it just for insight into Charles too as well. I've now done a reply video of it. I haven't made it public yet. It's still private. I'll put it on Patreon now. I'll have to after I have mentioned it in public. But it's he had just taken. What I found interesting was Charles too was asking him, so how did objectivism inform BioShock? And Ken Levine said, well, I just had this Rand idea of do your best and get rich sort of thing. Like he really didn't have a huge web of ideas or knowledge of objectivism. So my point is that just a small fundamental grain, like you say, an example to follow, can branch out in a fractal way and give you it opens a door into a whole universe, and without that door opening, that whole area is closed off to you. And
right.
BioShock, which a lot of objectivists went crazy, their heads blew up, they said, I can't believe objectivism's exemplified in a game. Well, it's just because the guy had heard about one little principle from Atlas Shrugged and thought it would be neat to write that into the game. And it's so powerful. Basic principles are so powerful, they pervade thought, that if you start with a basic principle, you'll end up making a pretty integrated and interesting, rich composition, just because of the nature of reality and ideas. So anyways, I just thought I'd mention that as a by thought, that all we got to do is get some basic good ideas into culture, and those will turn into good and interesting art forms, books, movies, whatever it is. So, there we
are. Before starting this interview with you, this discussion, I was telling you about a friend of mine that had taken me to a creationist museum. And so I'm always looking for real-life examples of what Ayn Rand's objectivism might look like in a factory or some sort of like a theme park or something. But this friend of mine who's religious, creationist, took me to this museum where they had dinosaur fossils, and they had replicas, life-size replicas of velociraptors and like triceratops. They went all out. They got a lot of donations, and they made this thing like a real archaeological dig site with like all these things together. But from a biblical perspective, the young Earth creationist, 6,000-year-old time span. But I see that they took the ideas that are current in the world and culture of science and Darwinism, and they blended it with their Christianity and their notion that the Bible tells like literal historical events from the past, and they merged them together in a way that they can invite friends and family. They threw parties, bringing everyone together to view this thing that they said it introduces people to Christianity that might not have been introduced before. People who think dinosaurs are really cool, and I think that's like just about everybody. But I was wondering if there's anything that we can look for that might be that example for objectivism.
I don't know. That's why I return to the worry that very small numbers of society are actually going to be involved in philosophy, and most people are just going to be getting on with practicing the ideas they're given. So maybe what we need to concern ourselves with is usurping or taking over schools and academia. But Ayn Rand, I mean, if stories are really as important as Jordan Peterson says, then Ayn Rand had the right idea to start off with a couple of really good stories. And we can work from there. Atlas Shrugged is kind of a long story. Maybe we can get
I haven't read OPA yet, but everyone's talking about how OPA exemplifies, or it gives, what is it, like a condensed form of objectivism. How long is that book?
300 pages, maybe.
It's a little bit more deal.
I'll tell you what, it is some of the easiest reading you'll ever do. OPAR is easy. You'll have to reread every paragraph, but but they're very, very, it's so easy. Everything's so clear. That is, no, if you haven't read Opar, you're missing out. It's an amazing, I couldn't put it down. I could not put it down. So, get it and
so I'm
enjoy
always
it.
looking for condensed versions like that. I think I might have mentioned it in the comments section of one of your videos. When it comes to immigration, I think that the reason why immigration is an issue is because our education system is failing. Because people are being taught crazy ideas and that they should be dependent on the government. But if we can pay, like everyone, we start a Kickstarter, everyone gives $1, and we send Yaron Brook to the border, handing out brochures and copies of Opar in Spanish. I mean, if we can bring in people who understand that independence and resilience are virtues, are good things that people should strive for. That hard work, it not only benefits society, but it benefits yourself because you're working on, you're applying what Ayn Rand would say, you're applying science to survival, but you're doing it and you're increasing the abundance for yourself, your family, for your community. If everyone came in with that mindset, I don't think that we would have as much of a problem. But right now, I think that we don't have a condensed enough version or an easily accessible enough version of objectivism that we can just give to people. Hey, you stranger on the street, here, take a look at this and tell me what you think about it. Right now, it's a little bit more difficult to grasp because it does involve some reading, and not a lot of people read nowadays. And it involves a little bit of time. Not a lot of people want to spend time on these things.
Yeah, education's the key to it. Now, look here, there's two paths. There's rational and there's every other path. And the other path is very varied. There's lots of irrational ways to go about it. So we're probably doomed to have 95% of humanity going about their way in a very crazy way, and 5% of humanity studying and knowing what's going on and understanding the situation. That's probably never going to change. I don't know if it ever can or will. I don't know. Maybe. I just do not know. I mean, it occurs to me that even inside the United States, we've got a lot of people that just go on about their business and have no idea what the real world is like. They don't even know what the next state is like. And so I'm afraid we might not. I'm afraid that, I mean, you want to be able to tell these people about objectivism. I'm afraid their ears might be always and forever closed. What if that's the case? Then what do you think? Then what do we do?
I agree. No, I mostly agree. Me and my brother had arguments in the past where I said, hey, I think that 20% of the population is capable of critical thinking, and the other half, or the other 80%, are...
Half of them are good at math.
But they've never explored the possibility because they're just used to being told what to do. This is what, society is. This is what you're supposed to do when you grow up. And they just take on these roles as they're given. My brother, on the other hand, says, look, no, I believe 20% of society is capable of critical thinking, and the other 80% are animals, and they need to be led by the nose where they need to go. And these are differences in philosophy. I think that everyone is capable of exercising their mind, but they have to be given the nourishment to grow the productive capacity to think critically, and to criticize what they take for granted in life.
Well, what if I suggest that you could train a dog to be very vicious, or you could train it to be very gentle? Same dog.
You could. I agree.
And what if I then suggest that humans have a broader capacity because of our intelligence in both directions, including in the direction of viciousness?
I agree. I mostly agree. I don't think that you can train a person to be vicious or good, but you can show them.
Well, my point is that your brother's onto something. He's just. You say your brother's wrong that 80% of people are animals. I say it's far worse than that. Animals can't even come close to the terror that people are capable of.
Oh, I didn't mean as far as evil or destruction. I just meant that they're unthinking, that you turn on MTV for them, and they're going to sit there and just take it all in uncritically. And that's just, he's more on the censorship side. The reason why we have a debate about free speech nowadays is because there are people, especially the top 1% of the thinking minds in our world, who believe that, no, these people don't even have a chance, the 80%. They don't have critical thinking capacity. So if they see a commercial for Coca-Cola, they're going to drink Coca-Cola. They don't have a say, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But if they see a Russian commercial about why, Dora the Explorer likes exploring the southern border, they're gonna be like, well, yeah, she's a Mexican, and we need to keep Dora the Explorer out of stupid stuff. But they really believe that people aren't capable, so therefore we need to protect the stupid people in society. They can be innocent or blank, in their minds. They might not have critical thought, but I think that they're capable of exercising that muscle and becoming critical thinkers if given the right material. I think objectivism is that material.
Well, part of that, part of a good idea spreading isn't necessarily convincing everybody. It's convincing key people who are then examples to the people around them. So you convince 100 people, and then you can spread it to 1,000 and then 1,000,000. So I think I'm still going to say that where you say humans are mostly good and your brother says no, 80% of them are animals, I'm going to go even further over there with your brother, further than him, and I'm going to say 100% of us are wild animals. Worse than wild animals. Like Jordan Peterson says, you won't believe the stuff you have the capacity for unless you sit and think about it. And then you'll scare yourself. So
yeah. Yeah.
Animals wouldn't build torture chambers. We've got torture chambers on every continent but Antarctica, and arguably there too, because there is a scientific post down there. So we've got torture chambers everywhere. When we lock people in them, we do terrible things to them for no good reason at all. So I think people are worse than animals, and we have the like I said, the capacity. Like you can teach a dog to be good or vicious, you can teach a human to respect life and act in a virtuous way, or you can teach a human to be vicious and nihilistic. And we have more capacity on both sides than animals do. So
that might be true.
If that is true, then that would make philosophy even more important, right? Philosophy is not just the difference between living in a wealthy society or a poverty-stricken society. It's the difference between living a happy life and having torture chambers and death camps. It's a huge difference.
It all flows logically. Yes, you can train people and tell people to either be good or bad.
Now, in
the end, I think that it's a choice that every person needs to make. And every day by day, every moment by moment, they have a choice. Should I do the honorable thing? Should I do what my parents would appreciate? Or should I do the quick and easy, the shortcut to get what I want? So, it is nuanced. And I do commend you. You do talk about the nuance. I think a lot of people are, they're not blank slaters. There's not, I think you released a video today in response to Tim Woods about philosophy being 100% of the equation. And like you say, it's like, no, maybe it's 5, maybe 10, maybe 20%. I don't know where you would fall on that. But there's a lot of built-in instincts, and there's culture and gender roles. There's a lot of things that influence us. You're right that, humans have capacity for even greater good and greater evil than you can find in the animal kingdom. But I think that, if you give people the right tools and you feed feed and you water, their minds, they can grow to make better choices.
Yeah. Well, the greater good side would be the things done by Greece or Rome or Britain or America. I mean, there's lots on the good side, but then America doing what it did, equipped and built all of the machinery used by Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia and Imperial Japan. We built everything for them. They wouldn't have had anything. Without the machinery and the technology we gave them, they would have had no ability to do all those horrendous things. So at the end of the day, I'm afraid I've got to say that philosophy for the masses probably isn't going to happen, but we are going to need to defend ourselves against the maniacs in the world who have not heard of philosophy. In the meantime, in the future, their children might hear about it, but today, not everyone has. So we're going to have tanks and guns and borders, goddammit. We're going to have borders.
We will, yes, we will. I mean, borders keep order. I'm waiting for this. Tonight, the Democratic National Convention fourth debate is on. Tonight at 8 o'clock on CNN. But I'm waiting for somebody, I don't think it'll ever happen because it's controlled, but I'm waiting for somebody to say, stand up in the audience and ask the candidates. So cartels are a problem in Mexico. If you were president, would you send the FBI to go obtain these cartels and arrest anyone that resists? And I mean, I want to hear what these DNC candidates would say in response. I mean, if they believe in borders, they would say, no, it's outside of our jurisdiction. Mexico is Mexico, America is America. But on the current path that they're on, I mean, like Bernie Sanders, now Bernie is a little bit better on this, but Beto O'Rourke, I mean, I can fully see him saying, yeah, we'll bring the tanks to their front door. We'll take their guns and their drugs. They don't have a right. I mean, America has just as much right to control Mexico as Mexico has to control America, so we should just do it. This is their philosophy taken to the logical extreme.
And taken to the logical extreme, we would then see liberals, supposedly lefty liberal progressives who believe in peace, advocating the invading of a neighboring country.
Yeah, and what's to stop them if borders aren't a thing?
Right. If there's no borders, then why not send the tanks in? There's not a border. We didn't cross the border.
So, but I don't think anyone's going to be that honest. They're playing a little bit of a deception game right now. I'm interested in watching it tonight. Are you going to watch it?
No, I don't watch TV. I don't even have a TV. I couldn't watch if I want. I could probably stream it on YouTube, huh?
You have to go on CNN.com or New York Times. They're the ones sponsoring it. They did that on purpose.
I'll get it or hear about it later. No, I have no plans. No plans.
Do you have a DNC favorite?
Tulsi Gabbard, because I want her to put on an apron and serve me cookies.
You don't call her mommy, do you? You're not one of those guys?
No, I heard Nick Fuentes going on about that, so I just thought I would say that for fun of it.
That's crazy.
No, I think they're all idiots. I think it's a disaster. It's Trump 2020, and everybody wants Trump back in. Trump's
going to win. But I get messages. I subscribe to Tulsi Gabbard in her campaign, and I think she's going to protest. She's not going to be in the debate.
Oh,
she's
really?
Invited. But she's going to sit out, and I'm hoping, everyone's hoping, that she just sits on her living room couch with her film crew, and she just sits there and just pokes fun at these people for all the stupid stuff that they say. I mean, okay, so Tulsi, so her and there's a couple of other candidates that would probably take votes away from Trump should they run, but the DNC is so corrupt and so dumb that they're going to pick the most extreme candidate or their favorite, whoever's going to make them the most money. And they're going to let their party crash and burn. So I'm looking to seeing Bernie Sanders tell them that, I don't have a foreign policy. Just leave them alone. Or Tulsi Gabbard to come around and say, all these people, gender is a thing, and there's two of them. I don't know. It's just so easy, like, just to tell small truths and smack these people down. So I'm going to watch it just for the spectacle. Hopefully, I'm a Tulsi Gabbard fan. I mean, I would still vote for Trump, but you gotta encourage the most rational people in their party. Otherwise, it's just going to be a mess.
Now I could hear Tulsi Gabbard has insane beliefs like socialized medicine, for example, and
Yes.
she won't come right out and say it, and but when they asked her about her views on that, she said something about something that works for Americans or something, and I could hear she was not committed to freedom or capitalism or anything like that. She's just trying not to sound like a completely insane commie.
You know what her slogan is?
What?
And it scares the bejesus out of me. Okay, she sounds better than the rest, but her campaign slogan is service before self. And by service, she means state before self.
Yeah, service the state.
Campaign slogan. So yes, I mean, even the best among them is still nowhere near what we need them to be. So I think this whole election cycle is just a wash. All of them are trash, but there's some people that are better than others. I want to see them all, snipe each other and let it go down as a burning dumpster fire that I think it is. And let them televise it. I don't know why they would, but they are.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested. Tonight's going to be exciting.
The Republican Party already collapsed and went away with 16 candidates who did not beat Trump. The Republican Party's gone. Trump is what's left. And it's a new party now. And it occurs to me the Democrats are going to have to do a similar collapse. And it might collapse around one person like it did with Trump. We'll see.
Man.
I don't know. I don't know who they could bring back.
It's going to be someone horrible. Hey, so I made this prediction. I actually made a bet with somebody, and it's still running. I think it was $10. Hillary Clinton, 2020. What do you? So we'll see.
Wow. Okay, that's an easy win. But
they're just going to DNC is just going to eject everyone off of the stage, and Hillary Clinton's just going to walk on the stage. Hey, everyone, I'm back.
What if somebody like Dave Chappelle tried to run for a Democrat office? What if the whole party collapsed around someone like Dave Chappelle, and when they ask something like, where do you stand on welfare? He says, I'm going to cut the hell out of welfare, nigga. Get a job.
I can see, if he was running as president and Oprah as vice president, I know I don't really like her that much, but I mean, come on. To follow up with Trump's a showman. We need somebody with a little bit of spice, a little bit of jazz. And yeah, I think we need Chappelle. I'll print out a few shirts. I'll get back to you, okay?
Let's run Chappelle. All right, I like it.
All right, well, this has been a good conversation. Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
No. Did we cover your list? Did we cover the things?
The most of it. I think the last thing I wanted to ask is where you see objectivism in the future. But, I mean, that's speculative. Do you have any thoughts on where we might be in the next year or two?
In the next year or two, I think that we're going to sort out this left-right divide, or it's going to become bigger. I think that the lefties are becoming... Sonny Lohman recently did another show on this. The lefties are they're too obvious. They stick out like a sore thumb. They won't talk to you. They insult you. They block you. They won't discuss anything. And some of them have found their way into objectivism. And they're called objectivists. But they are nothing but the worst leftist trash. And so I think that's going to come more and more to the front. That's where I see objectivism in the next few years, clarifying and cleaning this garbage out, the leftist garbage. Marxists. Why do we have Marxist collectivists in objectivism? That is crazy. So that's what I think. 2 years from now, it can't look the same.
I think it'll be a lot more exciting. I think what you're saying might be true, and there's going to be a lot to criticize. There's going to be a lot to talk about in objectivism in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So I look forward to it.
I think so. All right. Well, thank you for the discussion, Brian. We'll put this out to the Objective Sphere, and we'll see what happens.
All right.
All right.
Take
Talk
care,
to you
Mr.
later.
Cropper.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.